It is a miserable day today, weather-wise, and I am very sleepy, so we're going to do this quickly and then I'm going back to bed. Today I want to talk about difficult choices. I was having dinner with someone yesterday and we were talking about this. We were talking about our life plans and what we're planning, in the near future. A lot of people watching this are either dealing with chronic illness or just kind of young and having to make a lot of life choices regardless of your health situation. So I just thought I'd talk about it because it's weird. One of the things about being sick for the past 7 or so years is that I find myself consistently having to make choices. And it's always a shitty thing, you're always having to choose what you're going to cut out of your life or what you're going to sacrifice to keep yourself afloat. It's kind of like you're rowing through a river with a little rowboat with all of your possessions, and you have to keep throwing things overboard. You have this boat sailing through the lake of chronic illness, weird metaphor, and you have to just keep throwing things out, gotta throw out my plan to go away, and the next week I'm just gonna throw out my social life because that's how I'm gonna stay afloat this week, and the next week is I'm gonna throw out my career ambitions because that's the only way I'm going to be able to live through this year. But there are 3 little bits of wisdom or tricks or things I ask myself that have really helped me make these decisions and get more clear about how to approach these tough health, life decisions in the past, which have really made it a lot clearer for me and helped me navigate the situation. Number 1, if you are choosing between something you want and your health, and you choose the thing you want, you won't get either. A little bit of backstory. I got sick when I was 13. I have ME and POTS. I stayed technically enrolled in school the whole time. I don't think I fully understood that I was making a choice. I think I made too many of those choices on autopilot or because I thought that that was just the responsible thing to do. One of the few things that I was truly proud of during my teenage years was that I would sacrifice anything before I would sacrifice showing up to school. I was maybe 50% of the time wasn't there, maybe even more than 50% of the time at some points. I just got it into my head that the most responsible thing or the most appropriate thing or the right thing to do was to make sure I was there as much as possible. In order to show up to school or whatever it is I thought I needed to do, I would not see any friends. I would completely isolate myself. Whenever I wasn't in school, I would be bedridden. I suppose my point is that I always had this idea that I understood that I had to be taking care of my health. I had this kind of slightly guilty idea of I know I'm supposed to be taking care of my health and I know it's a priority, and I always said it was a priority, but I always said okay, but I'll just do this one thing and then I'll recover afterwards. And this is where my rule comes in, this is where the lesson comes in, and this is a really important lesson, and it's this: when you say to yourself, okay, I could wreck myself for these exams and my health will get worse, but then I will pass them and do well and get where I want. Or I could mind myself but not get where I want. That dichotomy is completely false. It's a myth. You're making it up. That's not what your options are. Because I got into university, I got what I wanted, and then I was too sick to attend. I think one of the details here that's important is that there's no ceiling or no floor to ME and to a lot of chronic illnesses. You can make your health, this is a bit dark, but just the inspirational bits come later in the video. Your illness can get so much worse, and there's really no limit to how bad and sick you can get. People are always oh, I've hit rock bottom, but unless you're dead, you haven't hit rock bottom. So now when I'm trying to make choices, I'm trying to work out whether I should go back and when I should go back and how I'm going to reintegrate into the world. I feel these moments of sort of panic, or where I'm oh, but I'll just get the degree and I'll make myself sick doing it, and then I'll pick up where I left off with this whole recovery thing, but at least then I'll know more stuff, be smarter, be more educated, blah blah blah. But then I'm no, because once again, when you choose something over your health, you don't get your health and you also don't get that thing. When you're making large life decisions and you make a large life decision based on the idea that you can postpone taking care of your health for a while, it never ever works out. Second thing that I like to think about. People talk about the discrepancy between our actions and our ideals a lot. I've been going to CBT a bit lately, and one of the things that the cognitive behavioral therapist said to me that I thought was pretty interesting was she would ask me things and I would say things and we'd establish things, and then I'd sort of say yeah, okay, I know that now, and she'd be cool, but you have to act like you know it. You don't know it until you act like you know it. We learn our own beliefs from the way we act. I don't know, she explained it better. She went into neuro pathways and how the brain works. I could go into it now, but let's be honest, we're both too tired to hear that right now. I'm just gonna layman's talk, it's like fake it till you make it is real life. It's not just like a fun Pinterest phrase. It's like, it's got scientific, like neuroscientific research to back it up. I bring this up because I think it's really easy when someone asks you what your priorities are in life to say something really sensible and something that sounds wonderfully healthy. So if you'd asked me at any point during my school career, and I'm just going to use school as an example because I was so wonderfully dysfunctional while I was in school that I think it's a really great case study for what I'm saying. If you asked me what I was prioritizing and how I was dealing with the whole health thing, I would have told you, A, health is the most important thing and I'm putting it before all the other things. B, the most important things in life are not careers and success and blah blah blah. The most important things in life are like love and happiness and friendship and family. I knew that was the correct answer, but I didn't act like it. It's so shocking to me how much when I was a teenager I believed those things were my priorities and how clearly they were not my priorities based on everything I ever did. I was acting in a way that was very unhuman and unfeeling, and then as a result, even though I was very human and very feeling, I kind of noticed that about myself and started to be like, wait, what if I'm not very human or feeling? And kind of that became a big insecurity, and still is a very big insecurity of mine. I still kind of think I'm a very mean, cold person because of these choices that I consistently made while I was sick and having to constantly cut myself off so that I could have enough energy to like sit an exam, write the essay, whatever. This feels a bit like TMI, I don't know, like the millennials who are watching this will be like, yeah, this makes perfect sense, but like my relatives who are watching this are going to be like, why is she telling this to a camera? This is definitely one of those generational things where everyone else is like, cool, we're down with existential crises on the internet, but anyone who hasn't like been watching YouTube for the last 5 years consistently is going to find this really a lot to take. But back to the point, you have to ask yourself, what are your priorities? What is important to you? What do you want from the choice? And then you have to ask yourself, okay, what would someone who actually believed those things and actually had those priorities, like what would that person do? Because it's so easy to say, oh, my family's my most important thing, or my friends are my priority, my health is my priority, my mental health is my priority, love is my priority. Like, it's so easy to say these things, you know? It's so easy to be all like peace and love and understanding. It's so hard to actually act like that. I don't want to sound too like millennial pain in the ass about this, but we do have a world that is like very interested in very specific types of success. A lot of people find that difficult and they're healthy and they still find themselves selling their soul and their bodies and their life and their time and their energy to these kind of slightly impersonal and human success games. But you and I, people who do not have a lot of energy, really don't have enough energy to compete in those things and also have any other kind of life. So it's like, this is not a video saying like give up on your dreams because you're sick, like absolutely not. Like I always believe this illness shouldn't hold you back and you should, you know, fight the power and beat the odds and all that stuff, but at the same time, and this is why this video is complicated, what are you willing to sacrifice? Are you going to literally harm yourself, like physically shorten your life for an arts degree? Like, is that a thing you're willing to do? Because I didn't make a choice to take time off. I want to focus on my health, to be clear. Because I know people seem to think, like they watch my videos and they're like, wow, you're so wise. And I'm like, girl, if I was actually as wise as you think I am, I probably wouldn't have literally studied my way into paralysis. Like, it's sweet that you think I'm so wise, but I'm clearly a fool. So what I'm saying is I didn't actually make a sensible choice to take a year off. I just physically couldn't go back. Like, the last 2 years for me have been really interesting because I've been recovering and I've had to kind of realize like all that other stuff that was taking my attention away from recovery and all of the stuff that I was periodically choosing over my health went away. Whereas you cannot escape your body. So like you're left with your health even when all of those like successy things that you were into go away. Which leads us to the third point and leads us back to now and to where I am now. I come in contact less often with these difficult choices, and that's kind of how I know I'm on the right track. If you every 2 weeks have to once again discard something, unload something from your boat, it means you are living a life that is unsustainable and that you can't handle. In some ways, like when I think about university, when I think about how I stopped being able to walk, what that was me sacrificing my legs, throwing them overboard. I didn't stop. Like when I stopped being able to walk, that's when I should have stopped trying to do stuff and started resting, and I didn't. But I think we all kind of get into this a bit. But I've been good now. I don't have to keep on throwing things overboard because I'm sailing through a lake with an appropriate amount of weight on my rowboat. I don't know anything about sailing, so this metaphor might make no sense. There's still the question of the future. And yesterday I was talking about this at dinner, as I said. We were talking about how I am going to choose what to do next. And I was talking about how, like, for me, it's always about asking myself the question, seeing all the pros and cons, but knowing that there is always a veto. There are arguments, and then there are counter arguments, and there's the internal debate that we all go through. But then there is also my health, and my health has a singular power, and that is veto power. It's like the other life arguments are Congress trying to approve a bill, and then like my health is the president and gets to veto the bill. Very US-centric metaphor, but there you go. I like to think of this in terms of a scene from Fiddler on the Roof, the musical. Might not sound like much, but it has literally changed my life. I do this out loud when I'm trying to make a hard decision, and it really helps. There's these sections of Fiddler on the Roof where Tevye, the main character, has these monologues, and he's talking through his thoughts.
Can I deny everything I believe in? On the other hand, can I deny my own daughter? On the other hand, how can I turn my back on my faith, my people? If I try and bend that far, I'll break. On the other hand, no. There is no other hand.
You're probably very confused right now. And there's always so many things that go into how you make a life decision. But I think when it comes to health, you have to work out what is your there is no other hand. What is your veto? What is the thing that you will not accept? I remember just feeling so low because I felt like I was hurting myself. Just the year before I had looked the other way, destroyed my health so that I can get into university, and here I was looking the other way, destroying my health so that I can get out of university. Do it once, shame on you. Do it twice, this is an actual pathology. And I remember just thinking, I'm never ever doing this again. I was just never going to choose to hurt myself over anything that wasn't really important ever again.
There is no other hand.
I don't know if any of this is helpful, and I know it sounds like I'm just saying the very obvious thing of like when you're making a decision your health has to come first, but there's a kind of a subtlety, and I don't know, maybe hearing me talk about my experience and what I've had to the way I've had to change, and the way my previous thought, like the way they were wrong, might be helpful to you in some way, might illuminate some aspects of the decision making process, or about like I don't know, might be useful to you that you haven't thought about before. I think if I had seen this video when I was 15 or 16, I'd probably be a lot healthier now than I am. But also, I know that if I'd seen this when I was 15 or 16, I would not have listened to it, and I would have continued to do what I was doing anyway. So I don't know if it's going to be of any use to anyone. But listen, I made it, so do with it what you will. It's uncomfortable for me, I think, because I've just really hardcore built an identity of my like inspiring ability to ignore my health problems and still achieve stuff. My whole thing is like, nevertheless she persisted. And now I'm realizing like, no, don't persist nevertheless. Take a goddamn sick day. Sweet Jesus. I mean, nevertheless she persists, you know, in the face of homophobia and racism, bigotry and blah blah blah. But don't nevertheless she persist in the face of like early stage pneumonia, like address the problem. Thank you so much for watching. I'll have a really chill, less intense video tomorrow for you, so stay tuned for that. Let me know in the comment section if any of this relates to you, if you have any like more relevant insight to give to me. Your girl needs it. I'm at an interesting junction in my life. Gonna start making responsible choices. Gonna stop putting anything making myself sick. And apropos of that, time to stop filming. Bye bye!